If you're in AP Lang or studying nonfiction in your English class, then your teacher might have hit you with a new term this year, the rhetorical situation. If you're feeling a little panicked because you don't know what that is, don't stress. While this might sound confusing, with a little bit of practice, you'll be identifying rhetorical situations like a pro. Hi guys, I'm Sarah. I'm a former high school English teacher with over a decade of classroom experience, here to make English uncomplicated. Make sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of my videos. So, what exactly is the rhetorical situation? As defined by College Board, the rhetorical situation is the exigence, purpose, audience, writer, context, and message of a text. To put it simply, the rhetorical situation is everything going on surrounding the text that you are studying. Remember, rhetoric does not exist in a vacuum. When a speaker is crafting their text, they will make choices based on their audience, what is going on in the world, what they're trying to achieve, etc. When we as readers understand this, then we are able to have a much more sophisticated understanding of the text, which will lead us to have more sophisticated analysis. Keep in mind, if you're in AP Lang, it is important to be able to identify the rhetorical situation for both your rhetorical analysis essay and for the multiple choice section as well. So let's break down some of the terms in that definition. First up, exigence. College Board defines exigence as the part of the rhetorical situation that inspires, stimulates, provokes, or prompts writers to create a text. In other words, what caused the writer to create this text? Sometimes there's a specific incident. Other times we have to infer what prompted the writer to create the text. Let's look at some examples. In the 2018 College Board rhetorical analysis prompt, the introductory information states, in 1997, then United States Secretary of State Madeleine Albright gave the commencement speech to the graduating class of Mount Holyoke College, a women's college in Massachusetts. Based on this information, we can clearly see what inspired, stimulated, provoked, or prompted Albright to create the text. She was the commencement speaker and needed to write a speech to deliver to the graduates. The exigence is typically very clearly stated in College Board prompts. Let's look at an example where we might need to infer the exigence. If we were going to read Narrative of the Life of Frederick Douglass by Frederick Douglass, there is no introductory blurb that tells us what inspired, stimulated, provoked, or prompted Douglass to write his narrative. However, by the end of the book, we can infer, based on what we've learned from the text, that the exigence is Douglass escaping from slavery and wanting to help the abolition movement. So, to review, exigence is what caused a writer to create the text. Sometimes we will know this explicitly, other times we will have to use our critical thinking skills to deduce the exigence ourselves. Next up is purpose. College Board defines purpose as what the writer hopes to accomplish with a piece of rhetoric. Remember, rhetoric does not exist in a vacuum. The writer knows that people will read or listen to what they are writing, and they will make choices accordingly to accomplish their purpose. When stating a purpose, you want to use an infinitive. For example, to inform, to gather support, to raise money, etc. Let's look at some examples. If a daughter is talking to her mom because she wants to go to the movies with her friends, the purpose of the conversation is to convince her mom to let her go to the movies. Here's another example. Martin Luther King Jr.'s Letter from a Birmingham Jail is a letter in which he responds to a public statement written by 8 clergymen. King's purpose is to persuade the clergymen and Americans of the necessity and validity of the demonstrations and protests happening at the time. Next, we have audience. The audience of a text is the listener, viewer, or reader of the piece of rhetoric. It is important to understand who the audience is because then we can better understand the rhetorical choices that the speaker has made. Returning to the example from the 2018 College Board rhetorical analysis prompt, the blurb tells us in 1997, then United States Secretary of State Madeleine Albright gave the commencement speech to the graduating class of Mount Holyoke College, a women's college in Massachusetts. Right away, we know that this is an all-women's school, therefore the majority of the audience is going to be women who are about to graduate college. But what else can we learn about the audience? Some of this we will use our general knowledge for. Other details about the audience are deduced from detail that we learn as we read the text. Mount Holyoke is a prestigious college, and the year is 1997. Therefore, we can infer that most of the women in the audience are white and the majority are well off financially. Furthermore, we can assume that most are around the age of 22 because this is the typical age of a college graduate. I could go on, but I think you get the gist of it. But why do all of these details matter? Well, consider that what might motivate and inspire a group of white 22-year-old college graduates is going to be different from what will motivate a different demographic of college graduates. For example, at an all-male school. Knowing that this is who the speaker is trying to inspire with her commencement speech helps us to better understand those rhetorical choices the speaker is making and how they will connect to that specific audience. Next, we have the writer or speaker, which is the person or group who creates a text. This is very straightforward, but let's take it a step further. I always encouraged my students to identify the persona. A persona is how the speaker presents themselves to the audience. This can only be discovered by reading a text and pulling out details. Why does persona matter though? Because the way you present yourself to your audience is going to tie into your purpose. Let's revisit that example of the daughter trying to convince her mom to let her go to the movies with her friend. She is going to present a persona that will be appealing to her mother. She might present herself as loving, obedient, and responsible in order to achieve her purpose of convincing her mother to allow her to go to the movies. Next up is context. Context is the circumstances, atmosphere, attitudes, and events surrounding a text. The circumstances surrounding a text include details such as the time or date and how it was delivered. Was it a speech? Was it a published text? Where was it published? Etc. The atmosphere can be thought of as the mood. What was the mood or tone of the event during which the speech was delivered? Or what was the national atmosphere at the time a text was published? The atmosphere of a eulogy is going to be quite different from the atmosphere of a commencement speech. Next is attitude. What were people's thoughts surrounding the topic of text? And finally, events. Events are the historical events surrounding a text. What was going on at the time the text was written? Sometimes you may know very specific details about this, and other times you will have to do your best to guess. College Board typically provides you with some basic context in those introductory blurbs of the rhetorical analysis prompt or the multiple choice section. Let's look at the 2023 rhetorical analysis prompt. Here's what it says. Michelle Obama was the First Lady of the United States during the presidential administration of her husband, Barack Obama, from 2009 to 2017. During that administration, she led programs including the Reach Higher initiative, which encourages students to continue their education after high school. One way it does so is by supporting high school counselors' efforts to get students into college. On January 6, 2017, Obama gave her final speech as First Lady at an event honoring outstanding school counselors. So, from this, we have learned the context regarding the time of the speech, 2017, the background of the Reach Higher initiative, and how it pertains to high school counselors. We learn that this is an event that is honoring counselors, so we can infer that the atmosphere is a positive, celebratory atmosphere, and the attitude of the audience is most likely in support of the program. It can be easy to get context and exigence confused. Remember, exigence is what caused the writer to create the text, and context is what was going on when they created it. The last component of the College Board definition of the rhetorical situation is message, which is the central idea of a work. In other words, what is the main idea of a text? You can only figure this out after you have carefully read a text all the way through. Finally, I want to introduce the rhetorical triangle. The rhetorical triangle is a diagram that illustrates the interrelationship between the persona or speaker, audience, and message in a piece of rhetoric. It is important to remember that all elements of the rhetorical situation impact each other. Going back to the example of the daughter who wants to go to the movies, she knows that her audience is her mother. The daughter knows she needs to convince her mother to get permission to go to the movies. Therefore, the daughter creates a specific persona that will appeal to her mother, and she crafts a message that will be most appealing to her mother in trying to persuade her to let her go to the movies. If the daughter were trying to convince another friend to go to the movies with her, the persona and the message would definitely change. Keep in mind, when you're writing your rhetorical analysis essay for your AP exam or reading a passage for multiple choice, you will not have time to thoroughly annotate and make note of all of these details. However, you should be able to quickly identify components of the rhetorical situation in that introductory blurb and be able to identify the key elements of the rhetorical triangle before writing your essay. Then, when it's time to write, you can incorporate those details about the rhetorical situation when you're analyzing rhetorical choices an author has made. That's it for today. Be sure to like this video if you thought it was helpful. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.